Pharaoh was then helpless and bankrupt, afraid of paying off his debts, and hid in his house. Therefore, one by one, the creditors kept coming to each other's houses. Pharaoh was very clever and not only a deceiver, but also a liar, so even when he was in the house, he would keep the door of the house open, so that the creditors would understand that no one was home. Day after day, the creditors came there, but not seeing Pharaoh, they went back. Pharaoh kept thinking to himself, how long will he hide himself like this? You have to establish yourself. At that time, the mission was the best in the world in terms of economy. Then Pharaoh, fearing his creditors, left for Egypt in the dead of night and hid from them. After traveling all night, he finally reached Egypt. After going some distance, he met his friend Haman. As soon as he saw him, he asked me, "My dear friend, why are you here?" Then Pharaoh said, "Friend Haman, I am very strong. I am in this. I have hidden and fled from my creditors. I am completely destitute. All around is in debt. Now I need some 1 o'clock work." Then Haman said, "Rahul, I am also in the same situation. I need 1 o'clock work." Or Pharaoh Haman went out in search of work. After traveling some distance, they were suffering from hunger and thirst. From a distance, they saw a man cutting watermelon to eat. Then Pharaoh Haman slowly went forward to eat that watermelon and said, "Uncle, we are very hungry. Please give us some watermelon to eat." As soon as the man heard this, he gave them watermelon to eat. They ate their fill of watermelon and were satisfied. After that, the owner of the watermelon farm asked them, "I have never seen you before. Where do you come from?" Then Pharaoh said, "We have come from a foreign country." The owner of the watermelon farm thought that he needed workers for his work. So he said to them, "Will you work for me?" They said, "Of course I will work." Then the owner of the watermelon farm said, "If you want to work for me, you have to work honestly. It cannot be made." Pharaoh was a deceiver, so he cleverly said, "I have never lied in my life." And far from stealing, Pharaoh and his friend Aman, by adopting various cunning methods, won the heart of the owner of the watermelon field and were engaged in work. From the next day, Pharaoh Haman went to the market with watermelons and sold them at a higher price from the market, showing more profit to the owner. In this way, he won the heart of even more owners. After some time, one day Pharaoh said to the owner of the field, "Go ahead, sell me the watermelons as pieces, then you will make more profit." The owner of the field agreed to his words. Then from the next day, Pharaoh took the watermelons to the market to sell again. The watermelons were sold as pieces, but sometimes he would steal some watermelons and come to the market and cut the watermelons into pieces and sell them at a high price. By doing this trick, he earned a lot of money. One night, he returned to his friend and said, "Aman, if we sell only watermelons like this, then we will not be able to do anything in life. We have to do something else." At that time, a wonderful thing happened. The king of Egypt issued a notice through his army throughout the country. The soldiers went to various places and said that there is a great need in the cemeteries of Egypt. If anyone is willing to do this job, then he should hurry up. The army left from there after contacting the court of the king of Egypt. After hearing all this directly and indirectly, Pharaoh said to his friend, "Come, Aman, let us go to the royal court." He said to me, "I think it will not be possible." Then Pharaoh said, "This work cannot be missed. Let us try once." Then Pharaoh Haman, without delay, immediately appeared in the royal court of Egypt, the king of Egypt. He asked them what else they wanted. Then Pharaoh begged him and said, "I am a traveler from another country. I am very needy. I heard that you will be employed by the cemetery. So if you would please give me this job, I would be eternally grateful to you." Seeing the child of Egypt, Shaun, they thought to themselves that he is healthy, looks good and seems good, so they appointed Pharaoh as the gatekeeper of the cemetery. From the next day, Pharaoh was appointed as the gatekeeper of the cemetery of Egypt. Day and night, Pharaoh stood in front of the cemetery in a small room next to it. His friend Haman and Pharaoh lived together. One night, some people came to bury a dead body together. But Pharaoh stopped them. They did not let them enter the cemetery. Then they said, "What is the matter? You're preventing the burial of the dead body. Why was he really a deceiver and repeatedly said so cunningly, haven't you heard that the king of Egypt has made a new law that if a dead body is buried together, you have to pay a gold coin? These people did not believe Pharaoh and gave him a coin to bury the dead body. In this way, it was spread that one had to pay 1 gold coin to bury a body. In this way, Pharaoh earned a lot of money by cheating. At that time, a strange thing happened in Egypt. At that time, the wrath of God began. Many people started dying from cholera everywhere. Then some people came to the cemetery to bury the dead. Then the trick was even more cunning and said, the new law of the king of Egypt has made that if a person dies from cholera, then 2 gold coins will be given. But he will be the one who can be buried in the cemetery. Pharaoh made a lot of money by deceiving everyone and taking gold coins. In this way, that year passed. Then Pharaoh said to his friend, Haman, look, I have earned 2 bags of money. But we will take these to the king of Egypt. Hearing this, Hansen was shocked and said, because you have gone crazy that you have worked so hard for money. You have deceived everyone and in the end you will give that money from the bus. He said, be patient with me. My intelligence will gradually become clear. Without delay, the next day, Pharaoh Haman appeared in the court of the king of Egypt with 2 bags of gold coins. He asked them, what is the matter? Why have you come to the royal court with the bag? Then Pharaoh said, I have brought 2 bags of gold coins. Hearing this, the child's minister scolded them and said, I am surprised to see your courage that you are standing in front of the child of Egypt and showing off money. Then the king of Egypt said, where did you get so many gold coins and why did you bring them? Then Pharaoh said, I will not go. I used to take a gold coin from those who came to bury the dead. Besides, I have money in it for my salary. My main purpose is to give you the gold coins on behalf of all the poor people of Egypt who have not been able to pay their taxes for the past 2 years. All the people there were surprised when they heard that you would forgive their taxes. The king of Egypt was impressed by his actions and paid special attention to him. The next day, the news spread throughout Egypt that a cemetery keeper had paid 2 years' rent to the poor people of Egypt. All the Egyptians said that there was no other such good man in all of Egypt. That man was not a cemetery keeper. If he were the king of our country, how happy we would be. In this way, first the king of Egypt won the hearts of the people of Egypt, and then the hearts of the people of Egypt. Then a long time passed. One day, the king of Mesha died of old age. Then everyone around him became worried. Who would be the second Ramesses the Great? A few days later, an urgent meeting was organized in the royal court. One of the prominent wise men present there said, this way, the seat of the king of Egypt cannot be left empty. What will happen? The king of Egypt, you all discuss and tell him. Then one of those present said, Sir, we think that the boy is the gatekeeper of the cemetery. That is, Pharaoh is as sharp in intellect as he is healthy. Moreover, he thinks very well of the people. We think he should be made king. Then that distinguished wise man said, Okay, but so be it. Pharaoh is the king of Egypt with everyone's permission. The man who used to sell watermelons one day, there was a thought in the cemetery, today by a change of fate, the king of all Egypt. No one knew how vile a person Pharaoh was. Meanwhile, after Pharaoh became the child of Egypt, once again, he tricked his friend Haman into becoming a minister. One day, Pharaoh was sitting in the royal court. He suddenly announced that no one in Egypt would have to pay taxes for the past year. All these taxes would be waived by Brown. The poor people of the whole world were very happy to hear this news. Then, when Pharaoh was alone except Haman, Haman said, Get rid of your friends. If you waive all taxes like this, how will the kingdom run? Pharaoh said, Be patient, Hara. Then I will be so clever that we will be the ones for the rest of our lives. There is no power in the whole world that can defeat us. We need cleverness to defeat them. Saying this, they both left one by one. From the next day, Pharaoh's name started being discussed all over Egypt. At this time, Haman called Pharaoh and said, Friend Pharaoh, if you want to live for the rest of your life, then some work is definitely necessary. Then Pharaoh said, "What is that work?" Then Haman told them everything one by one. Then Pharaoh organized an emergency meeting in the royal court. Then Pharaoh said, "From today there will be no education system in all of Egypt. All schools will be closed." Pharaoh issued a royal decree that no person in Egypt will be able to learn or teach. If any person disobeys, he will be killed. All those who make and worship small stone idols throughout Egypt should break them and worship Pharaoh's idols. In this way, in a short time, Pharaoh became afraid of Pharaoh's words and stopped learning, and the people of the whole of Egypt forgot the words of Allah and became ignorant and foolish. People became completely like four-legged animals. Then Pharaoh became very arrogant and started thinking of himself so much that he became so arrogant that he claimed to be God. Day after day, he increased the amount of taxes on the people. The injustice and oppression increased and Pharaoh alone started ruling all of Egypt. The amount of adultery and fornication increased. In a word, Pharaoh started humiliating the children of Israel. Except for Asia, no one else was spared from the humiliation of Pharaoh. Because Asia was the most beautiful, virtuous and pious woman of that era. So after many years, Pharaoh welcomed Asia as his wife. Once Asia was sitting in her own room and started thinking in her mind how her husband Pharaoh was. He is unjustly oppressing the people of the country. He is claiming to be God, so he will surely incur the wrath of Allah and destroy all the people of the country. At that moment, Pharaoh entered the room and said, "Asia, why do you look so worried?" Then Asia said, "Dear husband, you must know that this earth, the moon, the sun, the sky and the land were created by the great Allah. Therefore, no matter how much power a person gains, he cannot create a small insect. Humans are mortal and one day everyone will have to leave the world. So stop claiming to be God and return to the path of Allah." As soon as Pharaoh heard this, he became very angry and scolded Asia. "If anyone else had said this, I would have killed him," he said. "Since everyone has accepted me as God, you should also accept me as God or else you will be like them," Pharaoh said and left. Meanwhile, Asia became very worried because she had nothing to do. Only weapons started flowing from his eyes. Many days passed in this way. Then one day Pharaoh was lying in his own room. In the dead of night, he saw in his dream a huge ball of fire coming from the direction of the children of Israel and burning the whole of Egypt to ashes. However, nothing happened to the children of Israel. Seeing this dream, he quickly became angry. Without delay, the next day he called the great astrologers from different parts of the country to the royal court. And he told about his dream. Interpreting this dream of Pharaoh, one of the astrologers said, "Don't worry, Pharaoh. We can see your death in the future. You will not be able to remain the king of Egypt for long. Your power will be shattered." Hearing this, Pharaoh became very angry and rebuked the astrologer and said, "What do you mean? Is there any power that can take me away from my power?" Then the astrologer said, "There is a boy from among the children of Israel named Moses. Your power will end." Saying this, they left there. After a few days, Pharaoh said to Haman, "Take your army and kill every house in Egypt that has a baby boy." Pharaoh did as he was told, and started searching every house in Egypt with his army and killing the boys. According to the commentator, when about 80,000 boys were killed in this way, Pharaoh again called the greatest astrologers of Egypt. He was brought for counting, or the astrologers then said, "We can count the number of children. Among all the sons you have killed, that boy named Moses is not there." Then Pharaoh said, "Count it well." Now the astrologers said, "We can count the number of children. No matter how much you try to kill him, you will not be able to kill him. That boy named Moses will crush your power." And as soon as Pharaoh heard that the boy was now a child, the aurora formed and immediately. Now he did. You go to every house and search for mosquitoes in every house and kill them." This news spread throughout Egypt. Then the mother of Hazrat Musa, peace be upon him, became very worried. How will she save her child Musa? At that time, her daughter Maryam was grazing her goats on the banks of the river. Looking closely, she saw that many of Pharaoh's soldiers, including Aman, were heading towards their house. After seeing this, Maryam quickly went to her house. And he said, "The army of Pharaoh is coming towards our house." Hearing this, the mother of Hazrat Musa, peace be upon him, was completely shocked. She did not know what to do. By that time, Pharaoh's army had surrounded their house. At that time, Allah, the Lord of the worlds, said through an unseen voice, "O Musa, peace be upon him. Do not delay, leave your son Musa in the burning furnace and come." Hazrat Musa, peace be upon him, go and do not delay, put him in the burning furnace. He left the child Moses, peace be upon him. Then suddenly the army of Pharaoh entered the house. They said, "We have received news that you have a son named Moses in your house. Give him to us quickly." Then the Amazon said, "Look, if I have a daughter, Moses, in my house, then you should find him." Then Pharaoh returned. The army of Pharaoh searched the house from side to side, but they did not find him anywhere. Finally, they all left. Then the mother of Prophet Moses, peace be upon him, cried and went to the burning. He went to the stove and saw that Hazrat Musa, peace be upon him, was alive and playing in the burning fire. By the power of Allah, not even a single hair of Hazrat Musa, peace be upon him, fell into the fire. Then Hazrat Musa, peace be upon him, s mother thanked Allah and said, "O Allah, you are the owner of all power. All praises to you, O Allah, you have saved my son Musa." Then Hazrat Musa, peace be upon him, s mother had a dream that night. Allah the Almighty says, "You make a wooden ark and float Hazrat Musa, peace be upon him, in that ark in the Nile River." Meanwhile, Allah the Almighty called Hazrat Jibrail, peace be upon him, and said, "O Jibrail, go and help the mother of Musa, peace be upon him." Upon receiving this order, Hazrat Jibrail, peace be upon him, started coming towards the house of Prophet Musa, peace be upon him. In the morning, Hazrat Musa, peace be upon him, was very worried in front of his house. At that time, he saw a dervish. He came to his house. Then the Amazon of Prophet Moses said, "I don't know who you are." Then he hid his identity and said, "I am a carpenter. Do you need to make any wooden things?" Immediately, the Amazon named Moses said, "Of course, I need to make a wooden ark." And in this way, Allah Almighty helped the Amazon of Moses, peace be upon him, by making an ark that day through Jibrail alayhis salam. Then Moses, peace be upon him, did not take it, but floated the wooden ark of Hazrat Moses, peace be upon him, to the direction where the current of the Nile River of Allah's power goes. It went to the opposite side of that stream. In this way, floating, this wooden ark of Hazrat Musa, peace be upon him, reached the royal court of Pharaoh. There were present his wife, Mother Asiya, and a slave. As soon as she saw the ark, Mother Asiya came forward. Mother Asiya opened the ark and saw a cute little child with a bright light shining on its forehead. She had never seen such a beautiful child in her life, so without delay, Mother Asiya went to the ark. Moses, peace be upon him, took him in his arms and went to Pharaoh and said, "Look at how beautiful this child is. I will raise this child. Listen to this." He said, "No, this child may be our enemy. It may be a child from among the children of Israel. I will kill him." Then his mother said, "What are you saying? If this child were a child from the children of Israel, how could it have come to the opposite side of the river? It was supposed to go that way." Pharaoh said nothing more. He just said, "Okay, you can raise this child." Or his mother, Asiya, entered the royal court with Hazrat Musa, peace be upon him. When Pharaoh took Musa, peace be upon him, in his arms and was about to kiss him to cherish him as his own child, at that moment Hazrat Musa, peace be upon him, slapped the young child's hand with such force that the royal court shook. It felt as if an earthquake had started in Pharaoh's mind. Doubts arose and he began to think to himself that the child was not an ordinary child, he had to be tested. Then Pharaoh told one of them to go a little further and bring fire with him, so that he could test the child. Hearing this, everyone present there was shocked. When this man came with the fire, at that very moment Allah, the Lord of the worlds, through Hazrat Jibrail, peace be upon him, turned Hazrat Musa, peace be upon him, s hand towards the fire, and Musa, peace be upon him, became a child. I knew it and started crying. Then Asiya said, "There is no one in this world as hard-hearted and cruel as you. Does this young child know any difference between fire and gold?" Then Pharaoh's doubt was removed. And thus Hazrat Musa, peace be upon him, started growing up in Pharaoh's house.